Okay, so this is the nitty-gritty now. This is the stuff you probably most handle and be familiar with already, which is print layouts. So these are formats that are specifically designed to create printed documents. Again, luckily with these, engineering process has been developed, so text extraction, reflow can, for all these files, be automated. So a quick rundown for those who may not know, then in design the most recommended process now for InDesign is to resave the InDesign within InDesign as an IDML file, which is InDesign markup language. So markup language is like XML, HTML, this is InDesign's markup language, so IDML. And like an XML file, well, in actual fact, an IDML is created from XML, so it's in that format. So if you can process an XML, you can process an IDML. With a few tweaks in there to the engineering process. FrameMaker, you can save it to MIFs, MIF, which I think is, I can't remember what the M stands for, but it's something interchangeable format. Again, the same idea. It's converting that layout into a code file, which can be processed like any other code. Quark, now this doesn't have its own native code format that you can export to. However, there is some software that I have actually called CopyFlow Gold, and it's the market leader in processing Quark into text. It's a plugin for Quark. You open the Quark, and then that plugin lets you create a tag file, lets you export a tag file. And again, then that can be processed like any other code file, reflowed in after translation, and the Quark file is populated by the translated text. So it's looking good for localization for these three formats. Again, these are the market leaders, and again, Adobe is streets ahead now in the market, especially with InDesign. InDesign is used mainly for fancy layouts, glossy layouts, things like magazines, brochures. That's what it's suited for. Actually nowadays it's also starting to have some web functionality creeping in, so you can create presentations, animations, things like that in InDesign. And that can then be published to either web or to an interactive animated PDF, which is starting to appear. FrameMaker is more suited really for heavy documentation, like manuals, like 200-300 page manuals, books, text-heavy documents. In my opinion, it's still going strong, it's still used very extensively, but I think that's more to do with it's what people know how to use. InDesign, you can do large documents in InDesign as well, but if you know what you're doing with FrameMaker and you've got a record of using it, then it's why people are sticking with using it. So yeah, that's FrameMaker. And then Quark used to be the industry leader for print documentation, especially for newspapers. That's how it got famous. And it's still used a lot in the newspaper industry. Again, just from relying on it from legacy. But in the last 5 to 10 years, it's the developers, in my opinion, again, have been a bit lax in improving it and keeping it up to date, so a lot of people have swapped now to InDesign. The tools and the reliability and the robustness of InDesign is in all respects really better than one, so that's really why. All layouts after engineering and after translation will need tidy up, and this is the majority of the files that you will probably deal with that you need a typesetter to tidy up. The tidy up is the most time-consuming and complex for these layouts, simply because the layouts are complex themselves, and space is generally, unless the designer's got localization in mind, then space isn't important to keep up, and for text or other languages, so the most tidy up needs to be done to get that text to fit in place. Again, also there's various issues with these files in terms of specification from the client. So clients may be very particular about how they want the text to be tidied up. So if that's the case, and they send some sort of instruction to make sure the typesetter gets that, understands the instructions and adheres to them as well. So you might also need to establish some sort of checking phase at QA to make sure that the typesetter's adhering to those instructions. As an example, sometimes companies print in a process called black print, or black plate print. What black plate print is, it's a bit of a mouthful. It's where they want to reduce cost of printing. So if you imagine you have a 20-page brochure, a glossy brochure for a hotel, and you want to have that brochure printed in 10 different languages, then that would be 20 colour plates you'd have to create for each language. So that would be 200 plates. So each plate may cost £10,000 to, sorry, not that much, £1,000 to make, for instance. So you're already looking at a high cost for creating those plates. So the alternative is just to create one set of colour plates for every language, and then on top of that colour print, you then print black text only. It's a separate plate. So then you only have to create 20 colour plates and then 20 black plates for each language. And the black plates are a lot cheaper to make. So you'd end up with 20 colour, 200 black plates, as opposed to 200 colour. Now, if the client has chosen to do this, that means that you can't be moving colour images around in that layout in different languages. All the colour information has to stay exactly the same in every language. So that might be difficult, or might make it more difficult to tidy up, because you're not able to just shove that graphic down a little bit to get that extra bit of text in. You have to come up with other ways to get that text to fit in the available space. And again, also then, for this example, you'd also need to put some check in place at the QA stage to make sure no graphics or any colour information is moved around throughout the typesetter on purpose or by accident. Okay.
And do you find that most work now is tidy up as opposed to the traditional way of typesetting? When it comes to things like InDesign and Quark?
Certainly, yeah, with these print layouts, then yeah.
Yeah.
However, there are companies that still don't have engineering processes, so they still do come with requests. And also, sometimes it just doesn't work. There's problems with layouts, especially very complex layouts, then converting to these formats may come up with issues. Or it might be an issue that is a small issue but will then require some manual fixing, so it may not extract some text out for some reason. Or files can corrupt. sometimes people design files with too many pages and the file size is so big that it won't actually process. So sometimes before translation the files to be chopped up into smaller pieces. I think, I'm not sure about the latest versions of Trados, but I know the old versions had big trouble trying to process files over a certain file size, and it just fell over and ran out of memory and couldn't process the file. So for maybe a 100-page InDesign file, if it doesn't work, you'd have to go back and chop it up into X number of files, each containing X number of pages. Again, with any project, especially if you're looking to keep that client in service and they send new projects, then anything that happened on the first instance of localising their work, anything that cropped up, keep it recorded for next time. Even if you don't even have a project from that client scheduled or even planned, it's always worth keeping a record of what happened during the project, just so that next time if you get another project that's similar, you know what you're doing with it. Especially with companies of high turnover, like the company that I used to work for, then often the process was lost or recorded properly and it just ended up causing the same mistakes that happened the first time again. And the client does not appreciate that at all. They're the ones that were involved the first time and the second time, and they think that if they're using the same company they should know what they're doing, which is fair, I guess. So yeah, recording what happened and even having reviews as well as talking about now things can go better is invaluable really. It's easy to get to the end of the project and just say, okay, next project, we've done that one now, but if you have, even if it's just 5-10 minutes, it can be worth it sometimes. Okay, so I think I've already said this, but just quickly again. When you have a print layout like InDesign, Quote, FrameMaker, then it's more often than not going to have graphics in there. And how these work, instead of like with Word, where if you want to put a graphic in, you import the graphic and the whole graphic sits in that Word file. So all the data within that graphic, all the pixel information or whatever, that exists within the Word file. So if you ever create a new Word file that's 10K in file size, 10 kilobytes, and you insert a 1 megabyte image, then the Word file will be 1 megabyte because it'll absorb all the data into it. Now, that was considered a real big problem for print and for complex layouts, because very soon, if you're putting lots of graphics in, the file size is going to get ginormous. So to solve this, the software designers decided the best thing to do was to link the graphic. So what happens is, when you import the graphic into InDesign or FrameMaker or whatever, it imports a thumbnail image and stores that in the file. Also then there's a link to the actual graphic itself. So if you want to print that document as high res, high resolution, you're going to need those graphics to link to when you press print. Otherwise it won't have that high resolution data to refer to, and all it'll do is it'll just print the thumbnails in your PDF. So that's why graphics are important to have when they need to accompany the layout file as well. That's actually not important in some cases where the client is going to print or output files themselves. Sometimes they won't send the graphics on purpose just for that reason, and again just to save on file size and transfer. But if the remit is to create final PDFs for print, you're going to need the graphics.
So we should assume from that then that even if a file comes with graphics and you can see those graphics, they're not necessarily the graphics.
No, that's right. Yeah, really, before attempting